Hello and welcome back to the Franchise Growth Pod. My name is Belle, Director of Marketing here at AC Inc. And I'm here today with JB. Jen, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Belle?
I'm good. Um, I think I'm just going to dive right into our icebreaker. If anyone is a new listener to the podcast, we always start off with a little fun icebreaker. It's something we love. We love icebreakers here at AC. I feel like we do them all the time on roundtables and at events and all kinds of things.
Well, they're fun. They get you some info or an understanding of other people, personally a little bit more. And some of them are interesting and weird, and it's fun to see what other people's answers are.
It is. I was thinking it's like the alternative to the random fun fact. Like, you
Mhm.
know how sometimes you go to a bunch of like events or conferences or courses or whatever, and everyone's always like, "What's a fun fact?" You're like, I need to think it's so much pressure. Whereas an icebreaker question is like fun because it's kind of less serious. You don't need to like come up with it on your own. I like it. I think it's fun.
Yep.
So today's icebreaker is, what is the last song you listened to?
Oh, probably I'm a big TikTok scroller,
Oh,
and a lot of TikToks these days are, I don't know if you've seen them. Our algorithm is probably different, but it was Islands in the Stream. I think it was Islands in the Stream with the whole David Beckham getting your wife or your husband to dance with you if you play this song and start dancing.
I don't think I've
That
seen
one.
that trend, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we run in a little different circles, Val.
Sometimes, only
Yeah.
sometimes. That's really funny. I need to watch out for it. I'm gonna expose myself right now. I am an Instagram scroller, not a TikTok scroller. And so I do find that my trends, like it takes a couple weeks for the trends on Instagram to catch up with the trends on TikTok. So I also might in a few weeks be like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So it could also be that because I'm an Instagram scroller myself.
You know what though? It might have been Instagram because I scroll, I do
You're like,
the
I am
reels and I do TikTok. Like I have my order
an
in the
equal
morning.
opportunity scroller.
So it could be either. I don't know.
That's really funny. That's a good answer though. I didn't think about the scrolling videos when I was thinking about songs, because like when I came up with that question. But that's a good point. That is definitely like the last song I listened to was definitely on some sort of reel as well. Okay, that was super fun. That's actually I didn't even think about it that way, but that's a good way to kick us off. Um, and I think we might just hop in. Are you okay with that?
Do it.
Let's do it. Okay. We're going to hop in, especially because it is such a highly requested topic. We've done some episodes similar to this before. We've talked about community marketing for franchisees, but honestly, we could do this topic every week. Like it is so valuable. It's one of the number one questions we get, and it's how to get franchisees to do marketing. So it's one of the number one pain points
Mhm.
that we hear from field coaches, from franchisors, from leadership. Like even I'm on our marketing roundtable, and we have a ton of these marketers going. We just are struggling to get some of our, and some franchisees, don't get me wrong, incredible. They love marketing. They're super into it. That's one of the reasons they want to start a business. Like that is awesome. So definitely not everyone, but it's a very common pain point. Why do so many franchisees not do marketing or struggle to do marketing? Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think that's so common?
Ugh, easy because they don't want to.
Yeah.
um a business takes a lot of attention to run the operations, and we can get really stuck in that because the day to day, the fires, the clients waiting for this or customers wanting that, or covering a counter because your staff is not coming in or sick, or like it's quite demanding to run a business, and the marketing takes time and effort away from that
Yeah.
when you're stuck working in your operations. So that's definitely one. And then the other is lots of people aren't comfortable doing it. They just don't want to do it. They don't know how to do it. It's just a negative thing that, and even I felt like that when I had my business, and I now, like, I live and breathe it when I'm coaching, but just even figuring out the time, like chunking out the time and being like, oh, I got to go out and I got to do that Friday morning because that's when I'm supposed to do it. And it takes effort and you've got to be in the right mindset for certain things. If we're talking about going out in the community and going around to all the businesses in your town to introduce yourself, I mean, you've got to be in that right mindset. So I think there's a variety of reasons. And another one is really not knowing how. And I've used this example before where I've said, a client of mine years ago said that the way that they tell their franchisees to do marketing is go out and be mayor in your town. And that was the only direction that they were given. And the franchisees are like, what does that mean to go be mayor? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And one other thing is I think franchisors, especially emerging franchisors who are in founders, if you will, they are true entrepreneurs. They have done everything possible to build this business. And that includes getting out and marketing it when they first open, because that's who they are. And then there's a lot of assumption is our franchisees are exactly the same way. Of course, it's their own business. Of course, they're going to get out there and do the marketing like I did and figure it out along the way. And that's just not the case. Most franchisees are not true entrepreneurs like a founder would be. And that's why they've come to a franchise, is because they've got a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit to be their own business owner, but they need the direction and the model to follow and so on. And so I think yeah, that there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think that's a really great comprehensive list actually of going through like some of the major pain points that we hear often. Another one I would add is kind of similar to what you had said, but I think a lot of us really enjoy routine and really enjoy doing the activities that feel comfortable to us.
Mhm.
And this is also why, when a new field coach comes in to start working with franchisee, and we do this on a fractional basis, and we also help like hire other people and train them to do this in businesses. So we see this all the time. But a big one is whatever they are good at, whatever a franchisee loves doing in their business are the things they do all the time. And so if they do the operation side, like they do the scheduling and they do the budgeting or whatever, or they do the payroll, like all those things, if they do those things regularly, those are the things they are going to feel comfortable doing. Those are the things they're going to want to do more of. The idea of being like, now I have to go learn how to read our P&L sheets or train someone to do our payroll so that I can go do community marketing and go out and talk to new business owners. That is such a shift. And even as you were explaining, like on a Friday morning saying, oh, this is the time I've booked to like go do something different, right? You're saying I have to go out of what I normally do every day and go do something different. And if you don't have a lot of the steps mapped out for how to do that, and I think, again, not being a full-on entrepreneur, like I think that's one of the coolest parts of a franchise model is that you can be a business owner and build an entire life and legacy for your family and change your lifestyle. There's so many incredible things, and you don't have to figure it all out completely by yourself and risk, everything to build something brand new from the ground up. Like I think that's one of the coolest parts of it. But that does mean that often your personality is going to lean more towards like routine and operations and day to day instead of being like, let's go do this new thing I've never done before. So I think that routine and kind of getting out of that routine is also a big part of that. And something honestly that's very human. Like I feel that all the time when there's like a new task. I'm like, oh, or I could just like do the thing that I like doing that I do every day. So I think that's a big part of it as well. Jen, I'm going to ask you, so we've identified quite a few of these pain points here. I'm going to ask you, we're going to be talking about if a field coach is going to kind of two different types of franchisees, and each of them, like we went through a whole bunch of the pain points, and some of the pain points are going to be more prominent for like different levels of where a franchisee is at. So if you're a field coach helping a new franchisee, like a newer franchisee within maybe their first year to 3 years, how can they build good marketing habits, right? So we talked about kind of getting out of routine, knowing what to do, right? How can a field coach support starting off with building good marketing habits? Because as you said, like there's going to be a lot of pushback sometimes. Sometimes they're going to be really keen initially. And then I've seen this where if you don't see ROI right away, people go, I'll just not do that then, right? So it's kind of that is also another key pain point. So again, for a newer franchisee, maybe let's call it first year, actually, just to keep it nice and simple. What are the things that a field coach can do to like build that foundation right from the start? That would be really helpful.
So a couple of things. We'll go into the field coach in a sec, but the number one thing for a franchise system as a whole is marketing has to be, if it's important for your brand, which it is for the majority, not all. I've had clients where marketing wasn't a big piece, but that's a very small percentage. Marketing needs to be a big part of their initial training in some capacity. And so you are setting them up. And actually, I've mentioned this before, it should be in your friend dev process where you're setting up franchisees, like managing expectations. It is going to be part of your responsibility to market your business. And this is what it looks like, and making sure that you're getting franchisees who understand that and will do it and are the right fit. So absolutely that building marketing into your training modules. And it doesn't have to be first week initial training where they're learning, how to run the business. It could be maybe the second week. It could be a few weeks from now. Whatever it might be, is that initial training is really, really important. And then there's lots of brands, which I love this idea, is they will do they'll do training, but then they'll do a marketing boot camp. And so field coaches will run that and have a group come together. And every week it might be like a 12-week boot camp, and they get on a call first thing Monday morning, for instance, and they've create the plan for that week. This is what we're all going to do, and then we're going to report back our challenges and how we made out, kind of thing. And every week is something different to start building those habits. And really also seeing what the franchisee resonates with. There's going to be things that are not going to work for everyone, and then they're just not going to do. And so we can't force people to do them. If they're not going to do X, maybe they could do Y and Z. Or they're not going to do A, they're going to do B, C, D, E, and F. And that's okay. Figuring out what they are going to do and what they're comfortable doing. And so I think something like that boot camp will help them figure that, help build some of those habits, and see that they can do it. But they're also doing it with guidance, because the field coach at the boot camp will have they will have talked about the how to, because that's one thing that's missing a lot. It is the training for franchisees of how to and the resources to support them.
Yeah, I think so. Two things there that I heard was, like, number one, not just saying something like, go introduce yourself to all the schools in your community, but instead saying, like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go research all the schools within an hour of whatever, or 30 minutes of your whatever. And then saying, then you're going to, like, and knowing the steps, like, then you're going to go there and ask to say hello to what, I don't know the exact steps, but when you do that, like when you map out the steps like that, then someone can go, okay, perfect. I have the first step. Even if the first step is me just creating a list of all the schools, right? Okay, perfect. I've made progress there. Oh, the next thing, I just have to call ahead, or I have to, book an appointment, whatever the things are. Like, oh, and then when I get there, here are some things I could say, right? Here are some things I could give them. Here's how I want them to, feel at the end of that conversation, or whatever the things are, right? But when you have those steps, and as you said, at boot camp, I have seen that type of program work super well as well. Like that type of, do a whole bunch of accountability, and here's what we're doing, and each week we're checking in just for the first like 3 months or 6 months or whatever that looks like, and then moving to a different cadence so that those habits are really built. And so marketing feels like such an integral part of the starting of their business, is awesome. I think that's so true. And then the steps, and it's something else I was just thinking of. As you were talking about setting expectations, I think that is also the perfect time, if we're going to build a habit of marketing, to explain what marketing is and how it'll work. Like, to explain that when they go talk to schools in their neighborhood, that does not mean they're going to get 10 new customers in that week. Like, that's not how marketing works. And kind of mapping out, like, here's how marketing works. Marketing is kind of like doing payroll, or doing, like, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like one of these things that we do all the time, and we have to do it. It's on this list. And it's going to, over time, make sure our business can still run, make sure like it contributes to the operations of our business in this way. And so kind of almost making these like habits something that it's not like you go pay for an ad and then you get like, oh, now we have business for the next month. Like that's not that's not how this works. And it's kind of like interest or whatever, like it's compound interest, instead of feeling like if someone goes and does this and they don't get results right away, they're going to feel disappointed or go, did I do something wrong? So kind of setting that, because you mentioned the expectation setting, I think that education around what marketing is and how it's going to interact in their business is really important at the start, that will help them feel more like, oh yeah, this is my monthly marketing stuff, the same way I do monthly scheduling or monthly ordering or whatever their things are, right? Like that's part of what I do to keep my business running and healthy. And I think that's a really key important step for a newer franchisee as well, like in that first year.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's all about brand awareness, and maybe that's the approach that franchisors should take. It's brand awareness. It is which will help you with lead generation or customers or whatever it might be. But what's first and foremost is especially for new guys going into a city that maybe doesn't know the brand or whatever, everything's just about brand awareness. Certainly in your first year, that you hope is gonna start paying off. And it might a little bit, but it's like, I love your compound interest analogy. That's exactly what it is. And that should never stop.
Cool.
Look at McDonald's.
Yeah.
How much advertising does McDonald's do? It's got to be consistent, and it's got to be always. And that's really just the bottom line. I think educating people at the beginning is on this is really, really important.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we always talk about, expectation setting and education and training at the beginning is incredible. But part of why field coaching is so important is that, if you put you and I into a course for 3 weeks and then are like, okay, and that's it, that's the information you're going to get to do this job forever. It'd be like, I do not remember some of these things. Or like, oh, I forgot we actually had to do that. Like, that's why this ongoing reminder and the education that continues on about these things are so valuable, because yeah, to be put through training for 3 weeks or a month, and then that's the extent of what you get for all marketing for ongoing, that's a lot of pressure to put on someone for that 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, I think the ongoing aspect is definitely still there, but the building that foundation really strong in the beginning is awesome. I'm going to take a bit of a different approach though for the second one, which is because I think we talk about that a lot. Like I think a lot of people here, and if you're a field coach or you're in operations and you're like, yeah, I've heard about the foundations. We do pretty good for our newer Z's. Like we put in that education. We know that we have to build those habits early and do better at expectation setting. We've already worked on that. The problem is that we have all these franchisees who are not new, right? They're not in their first year. So a legacy franchisee, or maybe like a middle performer who's been with the brand for a long time, but they don't like marketing. And we didn't do all those steps at the beginning for these franchisees. And I'm supposed to now be working with them, but we haven't done all of that foundational work the same way we do with our newer owners coming on. What are field coaches supposed to do with that situation, right? Where you're not working from the beginning. And I think it annoys me so much when I hear like, hey, here's how to solve this problem. Do better from the beginning. I'm like, that's not a solution. So
Mhm.
and it could be talking about legacy, or it could just be talking about a franchisee who's just been with the brand for longer, and you don't have that opportunity to work on the foundations the same way. What are some things a field coach can do with that type of franchisee relationship, and going, they just don't like marketing? Maybe they've even done some of it, especially in their first couple years, and they just didn't see immediate ROI, or they don't like it that much, or they don't really think it's worth it, or whatever the situation is. What are some things a field coach can do to help bring marketing back to the forefront for a franchisee like that? And I know there's a couple different routes you can take. Like I know there's not just one answer. I've even heard, Brecken and I had a chat even just the other day, and he was saying, well, someone has to do it. So one alternative is even just to hire someone to come be your community marketing, right? Whether that's your general manager, maybe you have a sales manager or whatever. Like sometimes that's the path, right? Like, so I know there's not one perfect answer for everybody, but what do you think are some things a field coach could be doing to be helping with the getting out and doing marketing for that stage of franchisee?
Yeah, that actually, I was gonna start with with what you just said. I think it's really, we can't come at them as field coaches and say, okay, you're not doing a lot of marketing. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You've got to, right? We've got to tie it into what their goals are for their business. It's, that's the number one. It's like, okay, your goals are this, you're not reaching them. Or if they're saying, I'm not getting leads anymore, I'm not getting enough customers, what is going to be that catalyst that is going to take the fact that what they're not getting, or what they want to get, and how can we tie that into marketing if that's really the need? And so then it is going to be like, okay, you want X, whether it's more leads or to meet your goals. Let's talk through how how that's going to happen. And so a good coach is going to be able to make that correlation between, okay, if you want this, we need to get you more customers or more leads. So that's going to start with marketing. So let's figure out, and then you take the approach of, what do you like doing? What maybe did you used to do that you're not doing anymore? And really coaching them, using the coaching techniques to get it back to being their idea of what they might do.
Yeah.
And if they're like, I know, like for me, I hated, with my last company, one of the expectations was for us to go into schools and to try to, get time with the principal. And I was like, I am not about that. Like, all of my friends are teachers, and all I hear about how overworked and busy they are. And the last thing they want to do is hear from me. So what did I do? I needed that to be done. I did what you were saying, Belle, is I hired someone. I hired someone who didn't have that same mindset and roadblock that I had. I could have made myself do it, but I wouldn't, and I didn't want to. So I hired her, and away she went, and she did a great job. So I think that's definitely an element, but it's really sitting down with the franchisee and figuring out with them, what can they do? If they can't do it, who's going to do it? And then creating a plan of action with action steps around it, that the coach is then going to help keep the franchisee accountable to their own action steps with their check-ins and their meetings.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, so there are a couple options there, but the big one, starting with the connecting it to the goal of what do they want out of their business. And I think one of the things that can be tricky is if someone is kind of doing well on some of the goals that they've set in the past, and they're not doing a lot of community marketing, but maybe they have, a few existing good connections or whatever, and then they're still getting some clients and all that kind of stuff. But I've seen field coaches and our team come in as fractional coaches do is they also question sometimes, is a franchisee actually setting the goals they want, or are they just saying, I want to make the same amount as last year, or I want to just kind of continue with what I'm doing with what I have set up right now. Is that actually what they want? It's like getting a little bit deeper. It all comes back to that like mindset work, creating that connection and helping people achieve what they actually want to achieve with the business. And I think taking time to go, well, do you want to work less in your business? Do you want to start saving for retirement? Do you want to sell your business at one point successfully? Do you want to scale it, right? And actually be, having two or like there's so many options for what people actually can do in their business. And I think sometimes franchisees who are doing quite well, like a top performer or someone who like is pretty happy with their stage of growth, sometimes you actually just need to dig deeper into, well, what do they want for their life then, right? Sometimes it's not about like the business needs to be doing this different thing, but what if you want to be doing something different as an owner or a person in your life or for your family? And sometimes getting to that level opens up this like, oh, I don't have to just do the same thing all the time, or I don't have to just rely on this existing clientele. I could be reaching new people and scaling and maybe taking an incredible trip with my family, or putting one of my kids through school, or retiring at a certain age. Like there's so many things people want to do, but sometimes don't even think they're possible. And connecting, and again, that's what marketing is. We're trying to get the brand out there so that you can make more money, connect with more of the right people that need your solution, and scale the business to where you want to go with it. And so I think that's another one is always connecting back to the why. But if a franchisee seems really happy with where they're at, sometimes it's that they don't even think it's possible to get to somewhere else. Like I've seen that happen often is someone goes, well, this is kind of as good as like, yeah, I'm paying my bills, I'm good, like this is where I'm at. And you've pointed out some people really are truly happy with that, but oftentimes people just don't actually realize they could be at a different point than that. They think that's kind of the cap of like what's possible.
Yeah, I love using the question, what would happen if,
Mhm.
whatever it might be, like, what would happen if you made an extra $10,000
Totally.
of revenue, or 20,000 or whatever it is every month? Like, what would that look like for you? And
Yeah.
sometimes you put them in the picture, and then that gets the motivation, be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And if as coaches, if we're then reinforcing, well, you could get there if we looked at, increasing your number of leads or whatever it might be.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I think that is definitely the starting point, though, is the connecting back to what does the franchisee want to accomplish, because that's ultimately where marketing is going to start to become more valuable, especially to someone who already is performing quite well. That's where there's going to be a difference, and they can kind of see that shift, and then they'll actually feel more motivated to take action on that. Those are some awesome tips, Jen. Is there anything else you want to mention before we finish up the episode today?
No, I just, the one thing that I really think is not done enough is creating with anyone, any franchisee, that we've got to really work on marketing, is creating that action plan, being intentional about what we're going to do regularly, and having a plan to follow that is not only the community marketing that we've talked about, but what's their digital strategy, who's doing social media, what does that look like? And then planning that out, and it's not a one and done, it's a fluid thing that the coach, or if they've got, I love brands that have marketing coaches as well. For, part of the marketing department is meeting with franchisees, but the key to that is they have to be really well versed in community marketing as well to make that work. And so really just having that plan that can be used, and so that they can know what they're doing and follow that.
Yeah, like, I think it's so funny when people talk about marketing plans, because it's really, like, not sexy. It's a spreadsheet where we track what is happening and what are the actual small steps that accomplish these things, and then it's like booking time in your calendar, adding it to a list for the day. Like, it's not, I feel like people think it's marketing is this crazy big monster, and it's like, it's not. It's like mapping out, well, how are we gonna hire someone new? We have to build the job description. We have to go post it on the thing. We have to figure out, like, where's the money going to come from? Like, they're not sexy steps, right? And so
Yeah.
anything, when we're trying to accomplish anything business, is often the same structure. It's figuring out what we're needing to do, and then it's literally booking time in to do it, or making yourself sit down and, you know, do some reach outs, or put together your event sign for you to go to the fair and talk to people, or whatever. Like, it's often just like basic and kind of boring even sometimes.
Yeah. We
Absolutely.
need to make the shift from it being reactive. We're so reactive as franchisees. Just like, oh, I need more leads, I better do something. We need to be proactive and drive it from that standpoint, as opposed to react because of what's going on right now.
Totally. And that's where too, it's really interesting and it's really empowering and very cool to see, honestly, when franchisees start to realize, oh, it is just steps. It's just taking action steps on these things. And it's cool. Like, I know a lot of our team will talk about, like, the awesome steps that people realize. They're like, oh, and I have a coach that can help me figure out, is it better for me to be sending out mailers, or is it better for me to be going into, like, what's the best use of my time this
Right.
week? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. I have that support. And that's where you start to realize how game changing having a coach in your brand is for your owners. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes people have to, like, if you're an entrepreneur who built a business from scratch, people would have to pay for support, right? For someone to come in and help you with, like, is it the best call to go talk to schools? Is it the best call to, and someone who is a coach of the brand and can even leverage, like, what other franchisees have done that works in their markets and things like that, and kind of have that knowledge and be helpful. And not that they're just going to hand you the list. Obviously, it has to be driven by also what you're passionate about and what you are comfortable doing, and all of those things. But having that support and seeing franchisees go, oh, and I have a coach that can, like, help me figure out those steps, and then all I have to do is, like, go put together that, flyer, or I have to go. And sometimes there's even supplier partners they recommend for that, right? That we know would create the flyers for it, or whatever. Like, to see people realize that they are not in this by themselves, especially if a brand has just brought in coaching, or like, it's really cool to see. And it doesn't always happen that smoothly, but when it does, like, it is really, really special to realize, like, this business owner is becoming empowered and realizing they can take more action to build their business. Like, it is really, really neat when when those connections happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a very positive note. We started with all the pain points, ending on positivity. A great end to the podcast today. Thank you so much, Jen, for your time. I know
My
you are
pleasure.
such a busy gal, but we really, really appreciate you coming on to share some insights and the value and action steps with our listeners. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you all, and go be awesome.